I wanted to share our STEAM lesson for fourth grade who is studying space in the solar system. We do an activity that I call the planet painting creation lesson, or just planet creation. Now, in this lesson, we go over the planets of our solar system and what makes a solar system. We review the difference between an orbit and a spin or a rotation, and we go over different characteristics of the planets of our solar system. Things like how many moons does the planet have, its structure, gaseous or rocky, the main elements that it's made up of, and we usually look a little bit closer at one of the planetary features, whether it's got craters or it's covered with mountains and valleys and canyons, or it's covered with ice, or it just has icy patches, or it's got storms, it's got clouds, anything. Oh, and we do also look at one of Jupiter's moons and look at Europa, the completely icy planet. Now, as I'm going through this really quick, it's not really quick, but as we're going through probably about 20 minutes of a PowerPoint, I do give the students a note sheet, and I tell them ahead of time this is because they're going to be making a planet that theoretically could be in our solar system, but I tell them that it has to have features of something that we do find in our solar system. As wonderful as it would be to find a planet that rains marshmallows, we've yet to find that in our solar system, so they can't, invent a planet that rains marshmallows. So instead they have to pick something that already can be seen in our solar system. And I give the students, because they're fourth graders, a note sheet for while I'm going over the planets, and I tell them this is not anything that I'm going to collect, it's not going to be graded, they're not going to be tested on this information, but that they might find that there's something that they want to jot down, because they'll need to kind of recognize these things to put it into their planet. Of course, the first four on the first side of the sheet are our inner rocky planets, and the four on the back are our gas giants, our outer planets, and we do talk about how that's convenient. But I figure this, just a fourth of a page, is not so daunting. They shouldn't have to feel like they have to write everything down. After we've reviewed all the different planets of the solar system, I remind them that in their art class they had seen different watercolor techniques with their art teacher, and that we are going to look at the watercolor techniques that might make a circle of watercolor paper look like a planet. So I asked them to do some thinking. I have a little sheet about the different types of methods that they can have, and they have seen all of these before, but I tell them that if they want their planet to have clouds, and on the sheet it's got like little directions that the big clouds require soapy water put on the wet paints, whereas the small clouds, it's rice. We also talk about how volcanoes, they mix in baking soda into the paint the baking soda on the page, and then drop vinegar. For storms, we paint the page and then drop rubbing alcohol. But that they can also do impact craters with sea salt, or the mountains, valleys, and canyons with saran wrap. And they can also think about icy versions of their planet if they want a full icy planet. It might be hard to see in this light, but it does have a shimmer. It's pretty cool looking. We dissolve Epsom. After we've reviewed the different painting techniques, the students are asked to make a plan ahead of time, and part of that reason is so that I can get the materials out to them, but also so that they have a plan and they're not changing methods or characteristics of their planet ahead of time or trying to combine them, because then that just makes a mess. To plan, I do give them a really simple planning sheet. Initially, I had wanted the kids to think about the different elements that the planet might be made of, just because that was something I covered in the review. But now I've told them that it's really not important to me that they choose a color that corresponds with the element and what the element would look like from a distance. I just want them to choose something that's going to give them a planet that they really like the look of. But it's simply that I ask them to think of a name for their planet, and they can do that afterwards. But one of the first things they have to do is decide if the planet is going to be terrestrial or a gas giant, because you can't have volcanoes on a gas giant, so that kind of, you know, narrows down the selections for the kids. And I want them to also review and remember that we have planets that are either terrestrial planets or gas giants. And then I want them to pick what their major surface feature is going to be. So whichever method they want to use. And I ask them to record what other planet that already exists in our solar system has that characteristic, or has those characteristics, just so that it relates back to the planets that we've seen. Now, as they're doing this, I'm getting my stuff all set up for them to do their painting. The painting part really doesn't take all that much time, but it ends up with really cool results. So I set out, and I have to say that this tray is not as full as it was when I was going into the classrooms. I think I had 25 of my little containers, and I've got different shades of different colors. I try not to do too many repeats just so we can get some differences, and I do try to put a little mix of pigments in there, because for a lot of the methods, it does change what happens to the paint. If I just use straight blue watercolor and put soapy water on it, I might not get some of the different color variations that you get if you have just the teensiest smidge of green in there, or you got a little bit of purple or yellow or whatever other colors. I do try to kind of have shades of the color and nothing pure. And so the kids choose their container of color, and I do have them paint at their seats. Now, at their seats, they have been given one of these plastic solo plates. I have seen them where they don't have the square ridges. I think our Kroger brand still has circles, but right now the Solo, which is what's available where I go shopping at 6 a.m., has the square, but that flat part on the inside ends up being just about an 8-inch circle. Now, I've pre-cut the watercolor paper with my circle cutter into 8-inch circles, and I also have in each plate 2 1-ounce bank sinkers, fishing sinkers, because once you get watercolor paper wet, it does have a tendency to either fold or rainbow. So I tell the kids those are there for after they get it wet and they're having problems with their paper curling, that they'll use that to flatten it out, because otherwise all their paint runs off, and this gives us a nice rich color. So the kids have this. I remind them to put their names on the back right away. Forgot that in my first class this year, but you know, I know they sleuthed it out. But we get the names on it. They're doing their planning, and then when they're ready, they get their paint and a paintbrush. I have paintbrushes ready to go. I also have made the decision not to ask the kids to clean out their paintbrushes, because they're just using one color of paint. I tell them just to put the paintbrush back in the paintbrush pail, because by the time they're all done, I've got more than enough paintbrushes for everyone. By the time they're all done, no one's going to get their dirty brush, and that way it's just easier for me to clean all of them later after the fact. But I also set out all the other extra materials. I've got a spritzer with fresh water in it for the people who want the icy patches, and I've got containers of my different materials. So this is sea salt, and on the top I remind them to pinch and sprinkle. I learned that they needed that instruction, because otherwise they just dumped the whole thing and it was too much. So I've got multiples of the sea salts, I've got multiples of Epsom salts to be pinched and sprinkled. Ooh, hey, not close. I do have ready-made containers of Epsom salts to be mixed into the paint, and then these come back empty. I also have little containers of rice for the kids. I have just an open container, because when I use the rubbing alcohol, I don't have that set out in a dish, just because it's so viscous, easily evaporated. It goes too quickly, so I pour this right as we're ready to go. And I tell the kids that for extra add-ins, if their instructions were to add something after it had been painted, if it was a liquid like rubbing alcohol, salt, soapy water, or vinegar, those are going to be on the back table where we have all the rest of the materials. I do like to kind of supervise this a little bit so they don't go overboard. So I unjar my soapy water and my vinegar, and I get my rubbing alcohol in the little open cup, and I have ready to go spoons just in case we need spoons, because I do bring extras of the materials just in case, like, everyone wants to do rice and I only have 2 things of rice ready. I've got extra rice in my cart so that I can dole more out. But then I've got eyedroppers, and I have more than just 2. This is just after I've cleaned up. I have eyedroppers. I usually put 2 in each, soapy water and the vinegar. And I've got Q-tips ready to go for the rubbing alcohol kits. And then once they get set, they've made a plan, then they can come get their colors, get their brush, and any extra materials that they need, and most of it goes by really quickly. Now, after the whole class has painted, we do need to put the plates with these very damp pieces of circular paper away. In our classrooms, we have cabinets that are up high, and in most of the classrooms, that's a great place to stash things because these paintings usually need to dry overnight. So I stash them up there, and then the next day I go through and I pick up my weights, I get my plates, and I just leave the paintings behind, and then rinse things out for the next class. But they usually have to dry overnight, particularly if the kids are using saran wrap or they get it really wet, like with the volcanoes with the baking soda and vinegar. And then we end up with these beautiful, beautiful products at the end. We do use these as an entry many of the classrooms use them as an entry in their digital portfolios. We call our digital portfolios My Learning. And in their digital portfolios, then after their paintings have dried, their planets have dried, I come back and I help the teachers. We think about the different methods that we used, and we write down like the different ingredients and what it resulted in, just to remind them. But then we ask them to do a little pre-writing. We ask them to include in their reflection, in their entry, what the name of their planet is, what its characteristic is, like what geographic feature it has, and how they did that geographic feature. So they need to explain the artistic method that they use. Then I take a quick picture of the kids, either with my phone or my iPad, and I load it into their digital portfolios. And then after they've had their picture taken, then they log into their digital portfolios, and the kids can either voice record what they wrote, or some kids like to type it in where they've got the information, so that then that way they have that, the parents can see the work the kids have been doing, and eventually the planets do go home.